Woolworths is one company whose response to Australia Day this year has become contentious. Brad Banducci is the CEO of Woolworths. Brad Banducci, welcome. Can you give us a sense of just how low sales of Australia merchandise had gone before you decided to scrap them altogether?
They had been scaling back for a couple of years, and in recent years it was less than $1,000 a store over the month of January, which, considering the average store in that month could be doing, many millions of dollars, was de minimis. And so the decision was made to no longer do that. And there's a lead time, we buy it 10 to 12 months before because invariably it's imported. And rather focus on what we should be focusing on, which is good value, which is desperately needed, fruit and veg, and being proud of making sure that all Australians could celebrate Australia with the great value Australian produce.
What did it suggest to you about community attitudes, and does the volume of complaints suggest you might have underestimated the popularity of the day?
I think the reason we're sitting here is that clearly we didn't land our communication as effectively as we could have. And so trying to address that, and we'll continue to listen and engage over the course of Australia, the Australian Day long weekend. But what seemed to get tied together was a merchandising decision with not being proud to be Australian. We may have different views on the day, but we don't have different views on being proud to be Australian. And I think that's where the issue lies. And we're a very proud Australian company, 100 years old this year, actually, remarkably. The biggest employer of hard-working Australians in the country, and we're very proud to be Australian. But somehow they got a lot of these events came together in a strange confluence.
Did the calls to boycott your stores, including by the opposition leader, create an unsafe workplace for your employees?
I wouldn't want to attribute it directly to those statements, but it would be fair to say that the number of acts of violence in our stores has gone up by 50% in the last couple of weeks since people were aware of our decisions. So that's very worrisome. We already have far too many post-COVID. And again, the reason I'm here is to say, disagree with Woolies if you like, disagree with me if you like, but treat our team with the respect we hope they treat you with.
Did it have any impact on your business turnover?
Not really, but that's not the point for us. I mean, I feel very empathetic for our customers who've misconstrued our decision, and I've tried to read all of their emails, at least all the ones that are thoughtfully and carefully written, and they're many heart-sore ones. And for those customers, I care about them, and I'd love them to be shopping with us, of course. And for our team, I've done the same. So that's really been, where I've been focusing, and is important to us. Our customers are very demanding. They set a very high bar, and the fun of retail is actually trying to meet that bar.
Well, your corporate reconciliation plan encourages your company to, quote, move from safe actions to brave actions. Will this experience make you a little bit more focused on safe actions than brave actions?
No, it'll make us much more thoughtful in the way that we communicate and deliver messages. Laura, we are proud to be an Australian company. I'm proud to be an Australian, a first-generation Australian. And we want all Australians to want to shop in our store and be proud and happy to shop in our store. So we need to be very careful to get a more balanced message than perhaps we did the first time around.
There was also a lot of criticism of corporate Australia for backing the Voice to Parliament last year. How do you reflect on that decision now?
Oh, look, the metric we had wanted to have in Woolworths was, have we educated our team to make an informed decision? And after the referendum, 65% of our team came back and said they felt fully informed to make a decision. That was the metric we held for ourselves, not what our personal decision was on the referendum, but being informed enough to make a decision. So that's what we aspire to do. We did achieve that goal. We might have differences of views of how people should have voted, but that's not our role at Woolworths. It's to build an informed team, an inclusive team, and a team that's proud to belong to Woolworths.
Do you feel that corporate Australia and Woolworths have become somewhat ambushed by politics or political wars and culture wars in a way that hasn't been the case in the past?
I can't. I've privileged to have been the CEO of Woolworths for 8 years, so I can only talk about it during that time. I think certainly we've underestimated the change in what's happening in the mood of the nation. I think that is true inside Woolworths. I'm not certain whether we've been ambushed. We know what we are trying to do is make the 180,000 people who work at Woolies feel very welcome and belonging, and making them all feel like they can belong at Woolworths and they can all bring their best self to our work environment. That will not change based on anything that's happened in the last couple of days. In fact, our determination is stronger. How we deliver that and manage that is very different. So I don't think so.
Well, polling suggests people are more concerned ultimately about supermarket prices than Australia Day merchandise. We heard from the Treasurer earlier, the government's considering an ACCC inquiry. Can I just ask the question I think a lot of viewers would ask, which is, how does a supermarket chain like Woolies actually set its prices? I mean, do you have a set margin on everything?
No. Look, we care about cost of living pressure for our customers, can I just say? And we know that they've got the pressure, and we agree with the need to do whatever we can to help our customers with the cost of living pressure. The wonderful truth about supermarkets is we sell in the order of 30,000 different products, 12 broad categories of very different businesses, and we are part of the supply chain of each one of those broad businesses. In the context of each one of those, we try and set what we think is a fair margin. There's a lot of commentary on red meat, for example, which is one of our lowest margin businesses, and we deliberately do that because it's so central to families and protein and health. So we try and think about that in the context of each one of the supply chains we operate in.
But people still find it incredibly difficult to get in their heads how the price at farm gates can be so low. It's not passed on to customers. What's your response to that?
It's not the case. It's if you look at red meat, which is the one we talk, I think fruits and vegetables and meat need to be separated as very different issues. Fruits and vegetables are grown in Australia and sold in Australia to Australians. It's a domestic industry. Meat, and most of red meat, is exported. So Woolworths is a very small part of the red meat industry and a very meaningful part of the fruit and veg industry. So they are very different industries in the way they work. If I talk to red meat, there's a huge lead and lag time from the point in which an animal is bought or sold and when it gets on the shelf, and many other costs. And we don't buy from sale yards. We actually give our farmers, in particular our beef farmers, certainty of prices so that they can plan. So over time, our prices correlate directly back to the price we pay the farmer. But that doesn't happen instantaneously and needs to be seen over a 12 to 24 month period. So it does work, but you can't imagine a sale price that been adjusted today and the price in the store the day after. I wish life was that simple. It isn't. Now, that's very different to fruit and veg, where a difference in a growing season, which can happen through weather or whatever, in a week or two's time can be reflected back into a store. So it's very dynamic, very different. But if you look at both of them, they're in deep deflation right now. And that's been true about meat since about September, although we'll see how the weather patterns play out in the new year. And it's also been increasingly true. It's been true about vegetables since the same time, but increasingly true in fruit. So there are material price reductions going through to consumers. But what we're always trying to balance is do the right thing for the consumer, pay a fair price to the supplier, in particular if it's an Australian farmer, make sure we do the right thing for the 180,000 people who work for us and they have meaningful careers and take-home income, and also balance that against our shareholders who are invariably Australian super funds. So we are trying to think and balance the four as we look at that, and that's always a challenge. That's why I like the business, and we try and get it right. We might not every day, but certainly our goal.
Well, we're out of time, but thank you so much for talking to us tonight.
No, thank you for having me.